As I stand before you, my people, on this day of jubilant celebration, I say to you, when we find the devil in the bushes, no, he will be placed high on the peach tree, devouring the succulent fruit, while the poverty weeds lay wasted in the field. So revel not in the fascinations of man, and realize the accountability of the just and the unjust. For at that moment, we may all be caught up like a rushing wind to meet on that jumbo jet flight that we call life.
Welcome to Do the Damn Show. I'm your host, the tatted and fatted, the one and only Casey Hughes. And with me today for the very first time, co-host, Super Faron Davis.
Yeah, or you could say or how about this, the old version, tatted and fatted.
The older version,
How about old tatty fatty?
Old
tatty fatty.
We got old tatty fatty and Mr. Jeremy Braswell.
Oh, man.
I, too, fall into the tatted and fatted.
Woo.
So Jeremy, that was you on the intro. That is the song, What You Gonna Do. I don't know when you wrote that.
It was early on the Bishop Black stuff. That's one of the first, probably, songs, paper and pencil that I ever wrote.
Well, how about that?
Complete.
And you graced us with it being live today in the studio.
Right on.
In this small space.
Yeah.
With that loud amp.
It was very loud.
If I had hair on the top of my head, it would have stood up. It did on my arms. The hair on my arms was standing up. That was electric.
Yeah, because there's none up top.
Well, yeah.
There's
it was
none
electric,
up there.
man.
Yeah. I got a big spot right here that's starting to go away.
Yeah,
so I'm
it won't
not
be
far
long
from
till
you.
you're doing like I do.
That's right. Exactly.
But, my choice is do that thing where you got it just on the sides and the back, or shave the whole thing. So yeah. I shaved the whole thing.
I went to Decatur High School for a little while, and Coach Adcock, he had that little kind of patch right there. He was kind of bald up at the top, but
it's
had
like
a little bit right here. Yeah, the island.
Yeah.
And I used to call it the Adcock Island. And so at some point, I'm going to have the Adcock Island. That's what I guess that's what I get.
Just get those Jewish things and just put it on there for the time being.
Yeah, get a yarmulke.
Mine was Mr. Colbreth. Mr. Colbreth, this was junior high and into high school, and he had just a little small island too. Interesting point about Mr. Colbreth, Jeremy Braswell. Every now and then, I guess he would just get tired of teaching civics, and he would pull a harmonica out of his shirt pocket and play for the class.
Was it good?
He was good.
Awesome.
It wasn't the kind of music you just played. His favorite, I remember, I think he wrote it, but it was called Dead Skunk in the Middle of the Road.
Sounds great.
And that's what he would say. He would play a harmonica lick, and he would say, Dead Skunk in the middle of the road. He'd play another harmonica lick, and he'd say, It's a stinking. And he'd play another. It was great.
I'm stealing that.
It should be at your next show.
That's right.
Dead Skunk in the middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, I'm glad you're here, dude.
Awesome to be here.
It felt like it took 3 years, but, it only took 21 episodes, so we're good. That's a good thing.
That's awesome. Hey, we can accept it. I mean, you get young kids, you guys know how it is. I never know from day to day what we got going on. My event planner normally takes care of that. So.
Dude, I'm going to tell you something. I commend people with the travel ball and baseball and softball. My girls have asked almost their entire life, can we play softball? One, I have had the heart to tell the oldest one, you're not coordinated enough to play, so I'm not going to throw that out there. Two, I can't imagine living at the ball field. So that is kudos to you guys. Charlie at work, he does that. He coaches, and man, that's something else. So
it's like a blessing and a curse.
That's right. Good and bad. That's right.
But it's always good to give them an outlet,
For sure.
So real quick, while we're talking about the kids, what's Angus musically wise?
He plays drums very well. I would think he would be picking up a harmonica at this point, but he doesn't really care that much about it. Drums was easy. Now he's picking up guitar. I was like, hey, dude, let's learn G, C, and D. He starts playing G, C, and D. He's like, okay, Dad, I got it. I'm like, no, dude, you know like 3 songs.
Yeah.
Smoke on the Water.
Yeah,
I got a bass when I was like 14. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
and I thought that was it. I was like, dude, I done it. I did it.
I think all the kids are listening to that Zach Bryan song, Something in the Orange, and he learned how to play that, so now he thinks he's a guitar player.
Well, and I've heard him singing Watermelon Sugar.
Man, he can sing. He doesn't mind singing. He's not embarrassed. He'll get out there and do it.
I tell you, he's more of a guitar player than I am. No.
The only time I'm cool is when people are around. Angus is like, "This is my dad. This is my dad. This is my dad." But when it's just us, like, I'm not cool at all.
Oh,
Yeah, I get that too, Dave. And I'll try to. Hey, you want to come here and watch a movie? I'm in my room. But we'll come up here, and I'm in my dad's office. I'm at this yada yada yada. It's just
all the Instagram stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're only cool when they want us to be cool,
That's
or when
right.
it's beneficial to them.
Show and tell.
Yeah, exactly. My dad's paint shoes. Blah, blah, blah. That's how it is.
Y'all know Mike Cole?
From Athens?
Yes.
Guitar player? I do know.
Great
Unbelievable
guitar player. He played the other day at a car show that I was at. My church actually did a Father's Day car show. And I was up at the stage talking to him. And Ollie, he came walking up and he said, "Hey, Dad, your music is way better than his." And I looked over at Mike, and Mike just winked at me. And I said, "Well, son, I appreciate you saying that. Daddy knows the truth. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate it." And Mike said,
"That's great."
Yeah, Mike was like, yeah, your dad's the best.
That's awesome, dude. At least you didn't tell him liars go to hell,
Yeah. He's probably going to be a politician when he grows up. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of which, dude, I was watching a documentary on David Allan Coe yesterday. Or the day before yesterday, something like that. Anyway, he grew up like Mormon and a bunch of other things before he went to prison, this and that. Until he was 58 years old, he never drank coffee because his grandfather told him that you'd go to hell if you drank hot liquids.
Yeah. Is he still alive?
I think he is.
I believe so because, his son Tyler Mahan Co. does the podcast. He's got that excellent podcast, Cocaine and Rhinestones, about country music.
Funny story. So we're trying to find something to travel in. We bought Steve White's van, which was a Vandura high top. Didn't work out so well. We hit a bass boat in Florida, so had to find something different. Go to the car place in Priceville. They sell like a few used cars, but I think it's mostly like campers and stuff like that. I forget the name of the place, but anyway, we see this cool looking bus, and the guy's asking, "What are y'all going to do with it?" We're like, "We're going to tour and play music in it." He goes, "This will be perfect. This was David Allan Coe's." So we're looking at it, and it's awesome, dude. But like the very back of this thing is all like vinyl tile, ceiling to floor, and it just is really weird. And there's a little bit of a smell, like an animal smell.
Wait, dead animal smell or live animal smell?
It's a live animal, kind of a cattish, doggish kind of thing. But anyway, we're like, what's the deal with this back here? Because we're like thinking about what we can do to this thing, which is way out of our price range. He said he actually toured with a tiger back here.
Oh wow!
What?
Oh.
Toured with a tiger
in the back.
So I always found riders.
The original Tiger King, yeah.
I've always found riders fascinating. You ever read like some of the Stars riders, like the things that they ask for? It's insane.
Oh, riders. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
It's insane some of the crap that they ask for. 12 Milwaukee's best at a certain temperature. It has to be this.
Well, there's supposed to be a reason for that. And the reason is supposed to be, if they got all those little details right, that means that they got the important stuff like the safety of the stage and everything right. That's supposedly what some of them say is the reason for those specific riders originally. But then I think it just became, I'm this famous and powerful, so I can have whatever I want in excess.
Yeah.
But supposedly that's why that started, was because sometimes you had to go to these big stages and the stage wouldn't be put together right, and it would collapse and people would get hurt,
or the pyrotechnics go off on James Hetfield and it blows half his face off.
Yeah.
I saw a those Funko Pops things. They got a Def Leppard one in Walmart. And there's only 7 arms. I'm just gonna say it. I walked in. There's 2 big sets. It's a Blink 182. It's got Mark, Tom, and Travis in it, and then right below it is Def Leppard. And I was like, they didn't, and they did, and they like pinned the sleeve up on the shirt. So it's just the Funko Pop there with one hand with one drumstick, and the other sleeve's pinned up.
Oh man,
dude, I was crying laughing standing in Walmart. Wow. I know I look crazy standing there, but
nobody got it.
Yeah, nobody got it, but I was sitting there just dying laughing. Because one of my favorite jokes ever is awful, and I may take this out. What has 7 arms and sucks? Def Leppard.
Oh man. What's your email address again? Your specific email address?
I just said I'll probably take it out.
No.
That's the beauty of editing, man. So it's funny that, that it's always weird how these conversations transpire. So the writer thing, it started out as something, to make sure that they had everything else right. But the premise of the show, it kind of goes in the same way of that. You know, we talk about God and we talk about relationship with Christ and how at some point through that process, it faltered because of, let's just call it what it is. One person's interpretation or belief of something, they kind of take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I find that more and more and more every day. And especially with people like us that are sitting in here right now, as bad as I hate to say it, we're all connected for different things, but that is a root cause for what connects us three people sitting right here in this room.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, because we share that commonality of, you know, I went here, I did this, I did this, I did this, and somewhere along the line, that pain came. Or, you know, or our interpretation. I think I learned that from you on the podcast that you came, or the episode that you came on. You said you kept saying my interpretation of it. It may not have been what these people were saying. It may not have presented to me,
it's what I took
but
away
it was
from
my interpretation of it. And after that episode, I began to dissect those things in my life and go, well, did they really say that? Or was it just my interpretation of it? You know, how did that impact my life? How did those things, and how many times did I look at somebody and go, I want 52 green M&Ms in a bowl, you know, and I don't want any brown ones in there. Or, you know what, just melt all the candy coating off of it. I just want just raw M&Ms. How many times did I put some kind of stupid stipulation like that on somebody that was trying to help me?
Yeah.
You know, and it's super hard for us, I think, in that two-way street, you know, because we're inherently selfish people. Does that make sense? Or
I mean, that's in our nature, you know. It's not necessarily that you wake up and decide you're more important than everybody else.
Right.
And you love yourself more than everybody else. But it's in our human nature that, like you said, to use your words, that we're inherently selfish.
Yeah.
You know, it's a process, whether it's due to your Christianity or some other reason that you aspire to. It's a process to learn to be considerate of others.
Yeah.
Especially when it's at your own expense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Jeremy, what's some ways in your life, dude?
The whole God, Jesus side thing of it for me, it started back early. My dad was, I'll guess he was an alcoholic. You know, not a bad upbringing. My dad was a plant worker. But I remember getting off the school bus and my dad was home early from work, and, you know, I'd see my parents struggling, my parents fighting, and you guys know, the hollering and the threats of bad things my brother and I shouldn't be listening to, just a bad situation. And I come home from, and my dad had been saved and in church and started us out in church when we were young, but I remember getting off the school bus, walking in and looking at my dad and saying, you know, this dude's different. And he starts crying and apologizing and telling me, you know, but then he gets me, you know, we start going to church, start going to a small country church, and you kind of start getting those things of, I'm never going to be able to do this. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be tough on me, you know?
Yeah.
But I saw a change in my dad, which made me inherently want to do that, you know, want to be, you know, better. Fast forward through, you know, and I was a decent kid, very mischievous kid, and I got away with a lot of stuff that my parents never knew I did.
Yeah.
And I could probably tell them now, and it'd probably hair lip both of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the whole church thing for me was just kind of a hard pill to swallow, because I didn't really know where I stood in the church, or, you know, I thought I had to go, you know, me, church, God, which I got saved at Bible school, at Macedonia Baptist Church when I was 11 years old at a Bible school with my two first cousins. Never forget it, dude. If you don't come down right now, guys, you know, you're probably going to go to hell. And if you don't know Jesus, your Savior. And I'm not saying I was scared, but I knew I was in that category of who he was talking about.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Rodney Carrington does a skit on that, and he's like, if you don't come down here right now, God's through with you. I ain't shitting you. I know exactly what you're talking about, man.
So I went down, and you know, and I believe with all my heart that was the time for me, the pivotal point, because I can tell you this. No matter where I got in life, and I've been some crazy places, some ups, downs, this, that, there was always a voice.
Yeah.
So take that, you know, how you will. That voice is there, driving up here to do this podcast, praying that, you know.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit,
That's right.
Yeah, and that's, dude, you know, it's so hard for me in my life. I'm more open now than I ever have been, but you touched on two things that I want to make sure I harness on. The first one is what you just said. It's so hard to tell people, you know, I talk to God. That is such a hard thing to do, man, because one, people are going to look at you like you're crazy, you know, and for me, the double side of that sword is I don't ever want to be that guy. You know what I mean? I don't ever want to be, God, if you don't come down right now, God's through with you, I ain't shitting you, you know, because I'll never take that approach in life. But there's a fine balance, you know, between talking to people. And so I used to not. You know, I still don't pray in front of people. I told Crystal that when she was here. I'm like, I'm not the guy that's going to pray for you at the gas pump. I'm not going to do it. I'm probably going to tell you, hey, Chief, you got a voice, use it. I mean, I know the whole where two or more are gathered together. I get it. I understand it, but I ain't your guy. That ain't me. But there is that certain stipulation that's put on there to achieve these things. And if you were really doing it, and you were really in love with God and you really wanted to do this and you really wanted to make that change, you would do these things. Well, it's not necessarily true because I'm my own person, you know? And it started for me, the other point was I was 9, dude. You were 11. Do you remember how old you were, Faron?
9.
9? Mm-hmm. So same age. Let's go. My daughter is 8. Fisher's 9. My oldest daughter's 15. How old is Angus?
He's almost 14.
14? And Ollie, you got one that's 9?
Ollie's 7, Oscar's 9.
So Ollie and Oscar are 7 and 9. Mm-hmm. What do they know? You know, what did we know? Mm-hmm. What did we know at 9 years old or 11 years old? And I remember I was at Rock Springs Baptist Church when it happened. I can tell you it was so, that's a two-sided thing there. I can remember exactly where it was at and how old I was. So there was something to it. But I remember it was one of those shouting and hollering things. You know what I mean? And I remember looking at my dad going, I think I need to go up there. And he goes, well, yeah, you need to go up there. You know, you do. And it's just like, well, you know, my son's going up here to do that and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, why the spectacle? Well, you know, I mean, I get being happy, but.
Here's what I believe. And, you know, folks can feel free to disagree with me. And if I had a conversation with somebody, they might convince me that, you know, I'm missing something. You know, I don't know everything. But the whole idea of the altar call and you have to say a sinner's prayer and those things, I believe those things were made up. You know, somebody trying to figure out how to do it because I can't find those in the Bible. Yeah. The Bible says believe, right? So I'm having a conversation in the car with Ollie and, you know, again, 7 years old and, listen to praise and worship music. It's kind of formulaic, right? How many times have you heard a worship song that starts out soft with just one instrument, either a piano or a guitar, and it progresses until it gets to that midpoint where it's at its peak and the drums come in, right?
Yep.
So we're listening to this song. Now, I never heard it before, so I know Ollie's never heard it before. And it's getting right to that middle part where it builds in the drums, and Ollie says, this is my favorite part. And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, yeah. And I said, you haven't heard this before, though, right? He said, well, I mean, they always do this. Yeah. I said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So I said, well, you know, I think this is a teaching moment for my son, right?
Yeah.
I said, I like listening to praise and worship music because there's not anything better to sing about than Jesus.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And I said, you know who Jesus is, right? He said, yeah. I said, he's God's son. He said, yeah, he's God's son. And he came down here on the earth. I said, yeah. And I said, you believe in him and you believe that he forgives you of your sins? He said, yeah. So to me, as much as a 7-year-old can be, that's saved, right?
Right.
So he tells me that. But then he says this. He says, I've been watching videos about Jesus. I said, you have? Where? He said, on my phone. I said, oh, you've been seeing videos about Jesus on your phone? Yeah, on YouTube Shorts. And I said, oh, okay. He said, I'm about sick of them. So I said, you must have clicked on a couple, right? So they're in, you know, because they're in his algorithm now. Yeah. So I said, well, you know, you don't have to watch every one of them, son. You can skip them. He goes, yeah, but I watch them, though.
That's great.
And that's, I mean, but that's that same mentality. That's what I grew up in. If we would have had YouTube then, you know, and it could have been an assignment. Like I still have, it's out there in the front of the studio. I have a Bible that has my name on it from when I was a kid, and I won it at VBS because I remembered all the books of the Bible in order, you know, but that was pumped in. All of that stuff was pumped in. It was pumped in. So I say this, if there had been YouTube and those shorts, I probably would have been sick of it too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I got sick of it just in the verbal side that we had. Now, I mean, I'm an anomaly because my dad was a pastor and I lived at the church all the time, but it's the same thing of just being kind of beat over the head with it. So I'd say that to say this, a kid, you know, we can be aware of our surroundings in that, but how much are we doing out of just repetition, you know, or how, not necessarily now, but then, you know, how much did we do as the generation that we were in the churches in the side of religion that we grew up in was just repetition. We were acting out what was there. You know, there's kids that go, you know, there's 20 people walking down front. I might need to walk down front too. You know, and they just follow in line with that. So I say yes, you know, in a child's mind, they're saved, they're good to go, you know, you're covered, but is it cognitive? Does that make sense? Did I really know what I was doing when it came to this, or am I doing this because of what's been taught to me? Now the other side of that coin is that's how the only way you get anywhere is by being taught to do it. But there was just such a focus put on it, you know, that I don't think is there now. That whole big rabbit hole to say that now. I don't think there's the same focus now on these kids.
I agree.
That we had when we were that age to do that.
Well, for us, it was do. You have to do this and not do this.
Yeah.
And whether it was said blatantly or if it was just implied, so many of us learned that how do you know if you're good with God? Yeah. Well, it's based on if you did the things you were supposed to and didn't do the things you weren't supposed to. But the thing about it is, you know, we were talking earlier, and somebody, I think it was Jeremy, we were talking about, you know, salvation is not dependent on church or these other things. Yeah. It's dependent on belief in Christ. But Jeremy, I think, said, you know, I believe in Christ. Do I read my Bible enough? No.
Yep.
Do I pray enough? No. But here's the thing. Show me in the Bible how much is enough.
That's good. You just took it out of my.
See,
what is enough?
We don't have
What's
to.
enough?
I'm gonna tell you something. Jesus feels the same way about all three of us, whether we read our Bible and pray or not.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay? The reading the Bible and the praying is for our benefit.
Yes.
It's not something that we are required to do and then measured to see if we did it enough.
Yeah.
We're going to benefit from it.
Right.
But you know what? Some people pray for things that other people don't. Some people believe that, why do I need to pray for that? Because God already said he's going to do it.
Yeah.
I'll just assume he does it. Other people will pray for that, and they're not wrong, and it doesn't mean they don't believe.
Right.
But that's the kind of relationship they have.
Yeah,
so they're going to pray more about something that me or someone else might think, well, you know, thanks, God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, I figure he's already done it.
Yeah.
There's not a right or a wrong in that.
Yeah, it says in the Bible, right, each man works out his own salvation.
Yeah.
So if you look at that literally, I mean, who am I to judge anybody for their walk or how their relationship is between, you know, them and God? It's hard enough for me to just, you know, to work on my relationship. I can't worry about anybody else's.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, dude, for people. And that's, you know, I have such a problem with head counting, and I get it. I understand why you got to, you know, attendance and, you know, count ties. I get it. I understand it. But I don't agree with the focus that's put on it because, you know, I grew up in that where in the back of the church they had that little board kind of like with the letters on it. Yeah. Salvation's last week, 57. Mm-hmm. Well, great. That's awesome. You know what I mean? That's great. But it's not like God is up there going, all right, Assembly of Faron got
chalk it up
14 this week.
Yeah.
You know, and Jeremy only got 12. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bless Faron more than I blessed Jeremy.
Or like somebody's keeping a stat book, like the person at a ball game that's keeping the stats for the team, you know?
Coloring in the bases.
Yeah. And this column is this denomination, this column is this denomination, you know. Yeah. And your church is batting average.
Right. Because let's call it what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's a way to look back, and I know for a fact that there's a way to tie it back to finances and go, well, we had X amount. That means if everybody was on an average of this, we should have this. Mm-hmm. And there's always an algorithm in there that, you know, X amount of space goes by and then we have a sermon on tithing. You know, and I believe in that.
Well, it's just like the music, what Faron was talking about. how many people do you know at our age could sit there when they're having an invitation and he's talking about the music, they're playing Just As I Am while the preacher's telling you this stuff.
Yeah.
You can't sit there.
So it's there was a
it's manipulation.
There was a pastor
whether
at one
it's
time.
intended to be or not, it is.
There was a pastor at one time that I respected for what he said. He said, you can't go in and emotionally charge something. And that's before we come in here. Just about every show, I'll go outside and I'll smoke, and most of the time I say a little prayer. God, make sure whatever we're going to talk about today, it comes through with, do your thing, dude. Do the damn show. You do your thing. Just use it as a vessel. Everybody here to use a vessel to do that. So I think there's a certain level of production that has to be. We got to get the mics right in here. We have to get this right. But we're not going to stand out here and, all right, now I'm going to turn the lights up when Jeremy's talking. That way, it gets a little bit more mood feel. Or we're gonna dial this decibel level up a little bit while Faron's playing. That way, it starts to create that.
Don't forget the smoke machine.
Yeah, and the fog machine. Because I spoke one time at Shag's and I said, you know what? It's pretty messed up when you can get the same feeling watching Leonard Skinner and Styx play at Redstone Arsenal, those free concerts they used to do, that you can get on Sunday morning. Because I remember standing at that concert. Back in early 2000s when they would let you on the Arsenal to do that. And I remember the hair standing up on my arms. I remember that same feeling.
Oh, yeah.
That I had when it was supposed to be the presence of God. And I'm not saying that it wasn't. I'm just saying that if you manipulate something enough, you can make it work.
My take is there's not anything in the world wrong with emotions.
Nothing.
But emotions are a byproduct. Okay? Emotions aren't supposed to be the goal. So the goal is not supposed to be make everybody feel a certain way. The goal is supposed to be praise and worship God.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you praise and worship God, you're going to feel that way.
Yeah.
But if you want to truly praise and worship God, then you also do it when you don't feel that way.
Yeah. That's right. The slow burn.
And you don't you don't judge the success of that service or that worship session or whatever. You don't judge the success of it by the presence or absence of emotional highs.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they'll come, sometimes they won't, but God's the same, and He's always worthy of praise, whether we feel like it or not.
Exactly. So you guys are musicians. How many times you've been playing somewhere in a bar, show, whatever, and you look out and you got to see those people that aren't in tune? That's got to be an average thing at a bar.
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot.
They're just out doing their own thing, and you're really not playing to anybody but the three people that are there sitting at the table waiting for it to be over so we can go home.
Care less.
Yeah, exactly. So I would imagine it's the same thing there. You do praise and worship. Y'all both have done praise and worship. Mm-hmm. At some point, somebody inside the organization, and this is just me talking, man. They look out there and they go, okay, how can we be more in tune? How can we engage on a deeper level than what we are right now to get the product that we're looking for? And it goes completely away from what you just said. It doesn't matter what we feel like.
So how do you make that happen? So I've got a friend that he volunteered and went to Haiti to do some mission work. And I want to hear about it when he got back because I'm interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he said they went into a cinder block building. It didn't have a roof on top, no light. I think there was a lantern in the middle of it. And he said they started singing a song. I think it was Amazing Grace. And he said that people started filing into that room singing that song over and over and over. And he said, dude, I think we sang it for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it was just an influx of people that they didn't probably even know the words or that song, those guys there. I don't know if they did or not. But that was a raw, probably kind of praise and worship moment. I've never been a part of anything like that.
Yeah, because God was being glorified.
That's right.
Yeah. What happens is, again, I always preface with, this is my take, my opinion, because I don't think that I know more than anybody else, okay? Yeah. But you have fantastic moments like you were just talking about, Jeremy. Real organic, wonderful, spirit-filled experiences. But then sometimes we get caught up then in trying to reproduce it. And so what winds up happening is, emotion is something that God can use and may use to bring us to a certain place. And, sometimes the intentions of the lights and the smoke machines and stuff are start out as pure intentions.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to figure out how can we bring this particular demographic in to hear about Jesus and let Jesus do the rest. But the trap is when you're not doing it then to let Jesus do the rest, and instead your goal becomes the emotional high.
Yeah.
And it's not about what did Jesus do, it's about what we accomplished by making everybody feel this way.
Yeah.
So many things that I think are things that have maybe gone wrong in organized religion, things that hurt someone, end up hurting someone or certain groups of people, they start out with the right intentions.
Yeah.
But the focus switches, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the method is no longer the method, but instead the method is the goal.
Yeah.
And if I said that correctly.
Yeah. And I mean, I used to have a road name, and it was two sides. There's two sides to every story. So I personally, I've picked on the church enough about that. But the flip side of that coin is we created that. We created the competition for the need for that. Does that make sense? That emotional high? Because we ran God into the ground so much with beating people over the head of it that somebody felt like we have to make this more tasteful. We have to make this something
Maybe
to where
trying to right the wrong.
right the wrong, right. But it ended up being, it can hurt people when you do that. And it goes back to, I remember I had a conversation with a pastor one time. I said, dude, just for one Sunday, cut off all the lights, cut off the air conditioner, go to Little Lumber Company, go buy as many bags of sawdust as you can find, throw it on the floor, and let people just come in here and sit down and see how many people come back. No, we can't do that. Why? Put God back in it. Let God take care of it. Just do it for one Sunday, just to see, just to get rid of that, just to see if that's why. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's just like, drugs, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Too much of anything is bad for you. And you have to make sure that mission stays pure, because if not, if you'll notice, all three of us sitting here, what we've been through and what we're going through, it's the same thing over. It's just in a different, you know what I mean? It's not hellfire and brimstone anymore. It's not don't do, and keep the checklist, don't sin. Now it's another form of it. And it ends up still pushing people away. But the center of God, it doesn't change. He's never changing, dude.
You guys know that song, Heart of Worship, that worship song?
No.
When the music fades and all is stripped away, I simply come longing just to bring something that's of worth that'll bless your heart.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact details of the story, but there's a story behind that song, and it was one of the bigger mega churches, and they were known for this fantastic production in their music, with the full band and the lights and the whole thing. And I don't know if it was the pastor, the worship leader, who, but somebody came up with the idea that, okay, we've taken this a little too far. We got a lot of people that are only coming here now for the production value.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, I don't know if they did it for a couple of weeks or for a longer period of time or whatever, but they said we're going to, kind of like what you just said, we're going to do away with all that, and we're going to a cappella sing this song and some other songs that people know with no production, and we're going to do this until we come to a place where we're truly worshiping God this way. Then we can bring the other stuff back in when our focus is no longer on that stuff, but instead on God. Then we can reset and bring some of it back in, but focused correctly. Yeah.
And you're talking about praise and worship music and you writing music and things like that. I believe in my heart, if somebody truly writes a praise and worship song with the Holy Spirit involved in what they're writing and what they're doing, you can strip that thing down to absolutely nothing, and it's still going to come across because God was involved when the writing.
Yeah.
But on the flip of that, I also believe that song, like Kristen Stanfield, for example, y'all remember that song, Always? To me, that's like one of the best praise and worship songs.
It's a great song, yeah.
If you want to get me fired up, play that song, dude. If I'm, but I know that if I play that for my grandmother, she's not going to like that song, which my grandmother's passed away, but I'm just assuming she likes that song. So, I mean, how do you differentiate between that? I don't know.
Right. But I think that's where it comes into personal preference, you know,
sure.
and that's why I don't I'm not against having, being, the big myth about Decatur, the Guinness Book of World Records for the most churches in a square mile. I'm not against that. It's, people need to go. I don't like the same foods that you guys like. I wouldn't wear the shorts that Jeremy has on right now. I mean, personally, it's not my.
They're corduroy, not Bugle Boy.
That's not my game, but it doesn't mean I'm going to disassociate with you.
For sure.
You know what I mean? It's like music genres. I listen to everything. But, if you like smooth jazz and that's all you listen to, great, dude.
Or yacht rock.
Or yacht rock.
Right on.
Yeah,
Hey, Jeremy's still my friend, and I used to drive that Miata.
Yes.
So there we go.
There you go.
It was masculine.
But where it gets sticky is when you start telling people, oh, no, I can't associate with you.
That's right.
Because of this. Mm-hmm. Or it's oh, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, y'all go do your thing, But then you get back over here and you're like, yeah, dude, I can't believe that. I would never do that. I would never go that way. They only go to church on Saturday? That's crazy, dude. That's not the Sabbath. That's stupid. It's when you get into the politics of it, that just...
The only constant thing in all the friends that I've got there that go to church now, and I'm not in church right now. Do we pray and do we study? Yeah. Do we do it enough now? I already said that.
Do you believe in Jesus?
Absolutely, 100%.
I'm not in church either.
100%.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this: out of all my friends, my personal friends, the only common ground that we've got about Christianity is we all disagree on everything.
See,
this is very true, man.
There's a lot of things though that we can disagree on. Okay, I mean, again, what's the essential thing? It's belief in Jesus. Yeah, I believe, and there's people that think that me and my pastor and the people at my church are way too far in one direction, and that's okay. That's their opinion,
right?
And they can think that. But I believe that the only thing that can get between us and God is non-belief.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's not about anything that we ever do for Him to accept us.
Yeah.
Okay? His part's done. The rest of the stuff, the things that we quote unquote are working on, are for our own benefit, but not to be accepted or to earn a place from Him.
Yeah.
We can't do that. He sees us through, we post all these social media pictures with filters, right? I believe that God, I believe this is what the Bible tells us in the New Testament, that God sees us through the filter of Jesus.
Yeah.
So God doesn't see me for the things I've done.
That's good.
Or the things that I'm going to do. Yeah. He sees me. He sees Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what freedom is, man.
Yeah.
That's what freedom is. It's not a license to sin. It's realizing that my sin does not separate me from God.
Yeah.
Therefore, it has no power over me.
Correct.
You can tell me all day, well, you better not do this, you better not do this. Well, I might suffer some earthly consequences for it.
Right.
But I honestly believe that it doesn't now negate my relationship with God, and I'm going to hell now because I did it.
Right.
And since that's the case and it has no power over me, well, now it's a common sense thing.
Yeah.
Do I want to do this if it's going to hurt somebody? No.
Yeah.
But when it had power over me, and when I believed it would keep me in and out of heaven, that was a whole different thing, and it did have a hold on me because I gave it power.
Yeah.
But that's gone now, man.
So what was so just what he just explained, that's the do the damn show moment. That's the reason that this podcast is what it is because I got to a point in my life to where I had a conversation with God, and God talks to me differently, dude. I mean, I know it's my own voice, I know this stuff, but he just told me, Case, you just got to do the damn show. You're going to have to go out and love me the way that you know how to love me. And allow me to work in your life. And it was a very, very simple invitation. God, I'm sorry, I'm tired. And whatever the fuck you want to do, that's what I want to do. So what was your just do the damn show moment? Like, okay, against everything that I've been taught, everything that I've went against, everything that I've been trying to hold up, I can't. I'm just going to love God. Or what did that look like for you?
I did not have a clue how much God loved me. Didn't have a clue. And, sorry. I was playing in a band, dude. We were semi-successful, whatever. It was important to people.
Yeah.
It was important to me. When I saw my son, dude, I got it. I got how much I was loved.
Wow.
And that changed my life that fast. I don't know how to explain it,
Yeah.
but that changed my relationship with God. I started talking to him more.
Yeah.
Not like I should, of course, but that's the pivotal moment in my life. I couldn't accept that kind of love because I didn't understand it.
Right. Yeah. Makes total sense, man.
When I saw my son, I understood it.
What could your son ever do that would make you not love him?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Now,
Not a thing.
now
Not a thing.
now you're saying that, and you acknowledge that you're just a man. Okay, you try to be a good man, but you're just a man, not perfect, right?
That's right.
But what if you were perfect? And there's nothing he could ever do to make you not love him. You see?
Even more.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Now, there's some things you don't want him to do because it's bad for him.
That's right.
And it could hurt him. But you're not going to be like, well, as long as he doesn't do this. But if he does this,
Right, exactly.
I'm done with him. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna send him somewhere where he'll be punished and tortured for all of eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
No,
And all we're doing is we're restating something the Bible says.
Yeah.
If we as earthly parents can love our children that much, then
Yeah.
how much more can the perfect God love us?
Yep. Yep.
But freedom is freedom.
Yeah.
And that's a dumb way for me to put it, but I don't know how else to put it. If you're free from something, you're free from it.
Yeah.
And so that means that it's not going to eternally damn me if I do it. I
Right.
still shouldn't do it.
Right.
And Jesus didn't do it. And I don't want to hurt other people, and I don't want to hurt myself.
Yeah.
So it's not, that's a license to sin. No, what it is it's what it truly means to become a new person.
Yeah.
And not want to sin. That whole confusing stuff that Paul wrote about. The things that I want to do, I do not do. But the things that I do not want to do, I do.
Yeah.
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Because he was saying that, sometimes I do still sin.
You're right.
But it ain't because I want to.
Yeah.
It ain't because I'm preaching that grace means we have a license to sin and
Right.
do whatever you want.
Yep.
What he was saying was what I want has changed now
Yeah.
because Jesus changed me.
And that's, I told a guy one time, I was like, dude, we have to redefine Jesus. Okay. Jesus was a guideline. It's like a speed limit. You can go out here and do 80 on 6th Avenue. You can do that. There's a consequence associated with
Yeah.
that. There's a worldly consequence associated with
levels
that.
of
Different levels of consequences. It's a guideline. So it's the same thing with Christ. Like, it's a guideline. And so much of my life, people, you need to be more Christ-like. Well, you tell me what that is.
Yeah.
Which version of it should I be? The one that walks on water? Because I ain't never going to do that. I'm too fat. I might float, but I ain't going to walk on the water.
Well,
you want me to turn water into wine? Is that what you want me to do? Because I'd probably drink it all, at that point in my life. So it's at what do you mean by that? Well, be Christ-filled, be graceful in your, okay, well then you be grace-filled. You be more Christ-like. Don't condemn me as a Pharisee because clearly I'm telling you that I love God and I'm just not loving him the way that you want me to love him. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. If you want to find somebody that's doing things wrong, look at me, dude. I'm a perfect example of it.
Me too.
Do I try? Absolutely.
All of us.
Yeah, that's right. But I know, man, that God absolutely loves me.
Yeah.
And I know he wants the best for me. And I try, man. It's a daily grind.
It is. And it's always going to be that way. Paul, all the way up until he died, dude. It was that same way.
That's right.
All the way. Every single one of us is that way.
But Paul also had the confidence and knew, because Paul's the same guy that wrote, "There's nothing on heaven and earth that can separate me from the love of God." So Paul
Exactly.
tried because Paul wanted to be the best he could be
Right.
for the benefit of others and himself.
Yep.
But it had nothing to do with earning his place
Exactly.
with God for eternity.
Yep.
And that's the catch, and that's the freedom part of it. And when that pressure is off,
Yeah.
okay, and when it becomes, I want to do good, to do good, not I want to do good so I don't burn.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, then it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, whole
And at the end of the day, when you do admit that, I messed up, you can still lay your head down at night and rest peacefully.
Yeah.
Because of that, one of my favorite old hymns, Blessed Assurance.
Oh yeah, dude.
That's what Blessed Assurance is.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I just want to say something real quick, dude, because you've made multiple comments of it, and it's just because I love you as a brother. I want to tell you, when I read my Bible, Jeremy, when I feel like I need to.
Me too.
And on the days when it comes to where, depression, I still battle with depression, dude. I have to. I take antidepressants, I take blood pressure meds, I take cholesterol meds, but it's because I'm human.
Yep.
I'm human. I have human problems, but I'll get in some funks. But my core, I call it my little Jack Sparrow compass. That's what I tell Hayden and everybody. It points to the black pearl all the time. Doesn't matter what I'm going through. It points back to God. And this comes from somebody who was riding at 130 miles an hour down the interstate on his motorcycle at one point in his life, cussing him, screaming at him. I was drunk on my bike. You're not real. If you were real, you wouldn't do this. If you were real, you would pick me up out of this. I mean, I hated the character and figure of God. So for me to sit here today and tell you that compass points to that, even in my lowest points, I'll go, well, I don't have to read my Bible, but I always get something out of it that it may not even pertain to what's going on. But I got to the point of what Faron's been talking about. God still loves me even if I don't, because I am human. I will make that. I used to make the decision to go drink and things like that. And I didn't quit drinking because I think the Bible tells us not to. I quit drinking because it was destroying my life. It was destroying everything that I had worked for and the blessings that I did have. That's why I quit drinking. But I would turn and I would have an opportunity. I can go sit at the brick and I can hang out with Chad and I can drink all night and I can feel great for a little while. That's a train. Or I can try to dive into this relationship with God. And I flip-flop back and forth a lot of times, man. A lot of times. But he didn't change. He still loved me. And that's what he walked me through. You just listen for my voice, and it's not even really a voice. It's an impression. And the old folks would call it conviction. I don't like conviction because it gets a bad rap and it gets mixed up with condemnation. So I choose not to use that. I choose to use impression. But that's what it is. It's an impression of, okay, this is going on. I probably need to get in this relationship with God,
I agree with that. So you're talking about being on the motorcycle, flying, all that stuff. I had a moment kind of like that. You're talking about depression and things like that. I just graduated from high school, and I started having panic attacks. And those weren't very common at that time. That would have been in 94. Mm-hmm. And when I say I had panic attacks, when I laid in bed, dude, I thought I was dying. And this didn't happen once. This happened every night and sometimes during the day. My eyes wouldn't focus. It was awful. I don't know if you guys ever dealt with anything like that. I had,
in my early 20s.
It's completely like I wouldn't wish that on, which I don't think I have an enemy. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I'm trying to tell this to my dad. I'm like, Dad, like I was suicidal.
Yeah.
I mean, I was naked in a closet with a gun, ready to do that, like because I had no hope. And went and talked to my dad. Ultimately, they took me to the doctor. It was a God thing that I got through it for sure, because I did more probably praying then than I ever have in my entire life. They put me on Zoloft and got me through that bad time in my life, right? I hadn't been back in that shape since then. And my dad was kind of like, son, there's nothing wrong with you. That's all in your head. All this, all that. So my dad goes, 20 years later, he goes to Dollywood or wherever and Pigeon Forge and bungee jumps. And he calls me and said, dude, I'm so sorry that I didn't believe you. Wow. I'm having panic attacks now. So I'm like, Yeah.
And a lot of that, dude, was the way that they were raised.
That's right.
My dad was raised the same way. I'm sure Sammy was raised the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a harder time. And I mean, I'm decently hard. I mean, my kids don't get away with everything, but it's not like that. We take, if they bring something to the table, you got to listen to it. Yeah, you got to listen to them and sift through it. But a lot of that was passed down, and I hate to say it, but a lot of that came from the church.
Oh, absolutely.
It was...
This not of God. This can't be happening to
Exactly. And we lived by the rule, if mama can't fix it, mama will fix it. If mama can't fix it, God will fix it. That was the order of escalation to fixing your problem. And it's just not simply... That's not simply the truth. Now I'm not saying go out here and, suboxone all day long. I'm not saying that. You got to deal with root causes. It's a personal moral inventory of things that you got to go through to begin to the root cause and start to fix that stuff. But there are things in place to help with that, to help get from A to B to C to D to where you can get to the point and have those conversations with people and go, yeah, it is real, but there is hope on the other side of it.
I've been there.
Yeah, I've been there, dude. I've been right there in the trenches with it. So, and it's, to me, that's God. That's Christ.
That's right.
That's the mission of Christ. Yeah. That's what he did. That's what he came to do. He didn't come going back to the smoke and mirrors trick that we are now. Everybody, I think Christ is the only multi-bajillion, gadillion dollar empire in the world. I think, I hadn't looked, but it was up to a couple of years ago, like the Bible was the #1 selling book in the world. Well, that's great. You know what I mean? That's awesome. I'm not knocking that, but at what charge? At what degree? Why is it the #1 selling book in the world? Because we've made you can't even put enough commas and zeros in an empire off of it, off of something that was free.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I want to say this too, kind of as a disclaimer to some things I said earlier. Prayer and Bible reading are wonderful things.
They are.
Okay. It's the reason for it.
Exactly.
And if you're doing it out of an obligation
or condemnation,
because one of two things: either you're trying to earn something from God, or you've been taught that if you don't do it enough, then you can't keep what God gave you. Right. Yeah. That's different from, I want to know more about God, and I want to be closer to God.
Yeah.
Because the more you pray, the closer you're going to be to God.
Yeah.
And the more you read and study the Bible, the more you're going to know about God and godly things. So I wasn't in any way trying to say, don't read your Bible or pray. But what I was trying to say was, they're not an obligation. They're not a prerequisite to God's love for you. And no matter how much you do read and pray, God doesn't love you more.
Yeah.
What happens is you just understand more how much God loves you.
Right. And it's so funny that you went back to that, because that was the point I wanted to bring up was, all my life, and I think it was one of those things that was started in the most innocent of ways. It really and truly was. The closer you are to God, the more blessings you receive. The more you do, the blessings you get. Well, I'm going to tell you, there is a line of truth there, because that's how I live my life now. I've seen the way that God has worked in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen that. I partake in it. You guys are sitting in it right now.
He'll line things up.
Yeah, he's like, so I want to be more close to that. It's not the money. It's not the notoriety. It's not the fame. It's nothing to do with that. He finally made himself apparent to me, or I allowed him to make himself apparent to me. And I'm like, holy crap, dude. I should have been doing this 10 years ago. And so I want to do that, but it's not for the gain. It's not because of what he's going to give me. It's one, I'm thankful. And it's on my way here when I went to go pick up the groceries that I forgot about before Jeremy got here. I was driving to Kroger, and I just prayed, and I was like, God, thank you. Like, thank you for the opportunity to do what we're doing today, to have, to spend time with my friends Faron and Jeremy. Thank you for that. And for the opportunity to tell people about it, to sit there and do that, because there was a time in my life I didn't think it was possible, because I was doing everything that I could do that they told me I needed to do to get to this point, and it wasn't fucking working. It wasn't working.
Still a hole.
Yeah, and that's what drove me to the point of I wasn't naked in the closet, but I was there. That's what drove me to the naked in the closet with a gun part of my life was, I'm trying. But it wasn't. I was trying the wrong way with God, and I had to get a lot of that crap out of my brain. I had to get a lot of hatred out, And
freedom and abundant life comes when we recognize that none of it is about what we could ever do.
Right.
All of it is about what Jesus already did.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it.
Yeah.
What did he say on the cross? The last thing he said?
It is finished.
It's finished, man.
And when you can get that, dude, my goodness.
It's finished.
It's finished. Yeah. What else you going to say about that?
That's I spoke one time at Shag's, and that was the topic, is we had to redefine finished. What is finished? Nothing, absolutely nothing in this world we can put our hands to that's finished. You build a house, people say, we finished our house. No, you didn't. You finished You completed the first stage of preventative maintenance. Nothing, I finished building my car. No, you didn't. You completed the initial stage of preventative maintenance. So we can't comprehend what finished means because there's nothing in our life that we can do to finish. We can't finish. So when Christ said, "It is finished," it's something that we can't even compute. We don't even know what that means. We call it done, but we don't really know what that means. And it simply means it is what it is. I'm through.
Well, the requirements the requirement to not to die. Okay, that's a terrible way for me to put that, right? But Paul said the wages of sin is death.
Yeah.
But the gift of God is eternal life through Christ Jesus, right?
Yeah.
The thing about it is, sin cannot dwell in the presence of God.
Right.
It can't, because it's the opposite of God.
Yeah.
It's the only thing He didn't create. Okay? And so, the only thing that can atone for sin is death.
Yeah.
So the entire Old Testament was about, you did these things, so something's got to die.
Yeah.
When I was a kid trying to figure out why are they killing all these animals?
Rolling it back.
They don't, because we're kids and we only have our own point of reference. And our point of reference is, dogs and cats as your pets and baby sheep and goats and stuff at petting zoos.
Yeah.
Why they kill them? We think that's such a horrible thing. Well, you killed them for temporary reprieve so that it's their blood and not your blood.
Yeah.
It was blood, death.
Blood.
That had to be the payment for the sin.
The main
And that's why Jesus, the whole, He was the ultimate sacrifice.
Yep.
He was the only one that could finish it because He's the only one that never sinned.
Yeah.
And so He took that for us, and He put us back in the same state that Adam and Eve were created in. How cool would it have been?
We'd have to buy clothes.
But that's what's tricky. That's what's tricky now, though.
You wouldn't be talking about my shorts.
You took it out of my mouth.
But see, that's what's tricky
had
now.
that great shorts comment.
We still know what sin is because it still exists and we know what it is. So that's why we have such a hard time then accepting that once someone believes in Christ and receives the free gift, the grace through faith. That's why it's so difficult for then us to accept that it is finished.
So let me ask you something real quick. I've only talked about this point with two people in my life. Two people. What if the only sin that you could ever commit in life, the only sin ever, was not accepting Christ?
But I believe that's true.
So why do we?
I believe that the only thing that can condemn you to death is unbelief.
So then why do we as a society still talk about sin? If that's the only sin,
because we don't accept that.
Well, I think it's because we don't understand it. So truthfully, that's the only sin that you could ever commit. There are no other sins. And once you accept Christ into your life, you can no longer go through life sinning at that point. I'm not saying that's what I believe or that's the motive behind it. I'm just saying, what if the only sin that you could ever commit is not accepting Christ into your life? Once you do that, you can no longer sin in life. Like you're unable to sin.
But that's what I believe.
Again, I don't not drink because of religious reasons. I don't do that because of what it was doing to me. But scientifically speaking, if you drink a lot, it does something to your body, right? It changes things.
Absolutely.
It breaks down your liver. It's just bad for your body because you're putting something in there that is not supposed to be there. And actually, the drunk from it is a reaction. It's an allergic reaction to what you're putting in your body, and it throws everything off. So, okay, we'll say that's bad. That's a bad thing. If I get out here and I walk naked down 4th Avenue, is that bad for me? Is it bad for me?
It might be bad for me if I see it.
It would be bad for anybody
for the
seeing
passersby.
But for my body and my state and my conscious being and my relationship with God, is that bad for me?
Not a bit.
No, it's not bad for me. It's not. There's laws that say I can't do it, and there's free will that says I'm not going to do that. One, I'm not comfortable for that, but there will be consequences with that. But it's not bad for me. There's no harm to me that comes from that because I'm in my natural state. I mean, I know this is a pot.
There's consequences, though.
There's law, there's worldly consequences for that, but there's no consequence with God for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is when we define sin, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're drinking, you're sinning. Well, am I really sinning? Am I really? Or am I just doing something that's bad for my body?
I think that.
You know, I mean, is that what I'm doing? Because it's not a natural state. It's not a natural thing for me. Now, you can take it one step further and go, you're sinning because you're not obeying the law of the land, and that's why you're sinning when you walk naked down 4th Avenue. You know, there's ways to put stipulations on things like that. I say that whole big rabbit hole to go, you know, for me, I had to redefine what sinning was. Okay, well, to me, sinning is something that is not good for me. Not good for me, not because somebody else told me that it wasn't good for me, but these are natural things that are not good for me. I don't call my cigarette addiction sinning, but it's not good for me. You know, that could be classified as what would be, you know, sinful nature, because it's deconstructing what God made out of the natural state. And I just think it's important that when we spend time talking to people, what is it?
It's music. Oh, remember they said those guys were going to be practicing and wasn't going to bother our podcast.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, it's just redefining that when people say it's a license to sin. Well, what are you really saying? You know, what are we really saying? Because I think it's important for people to understand where they stand with God. You know, now I'm not saying go walk naked down 4th Avenue. I'm not saying go out and drink to your heart's content. I'm not saying don't love God. I'm just saying in your own conscious self, in your relationship with this God character, begin to establish what is good and what is not, and then take into consideration the constructive criticism in your life and the principles that are in this book that we call the Bible and this guideline and character that we believe in to call Jesus Christ. Apply those things so that you can begin to grow in life. You know, that is the true nature of God. That is the true nature of God. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that will separate us from the love of God that we all have for our children is something that is man-made or man-induced.
That's right.
That's the only thing that'll do that, because he'll never look at us that way. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole premise for all this stuff, dude. And these episodes and this whole podcast is just to let people know, man, God still loves you. Yeah. God still loves you. And if you want to walk in, you don't have to, but you're crazy if you don't want to walk in a better spot of life.
Shake off the baggage, man.
Yeah, shake it off. Shake it off. Because there's 3 guys sitting in here right now, each with a pair of headphones and a mic on, that'll tell you that you can.
Yeah.
You can do it, and it sucks, and it hurts, and it's not fun, but oftentimes it takes something that a lot of people don't want to do, and it's a deep moral invitation. You know, that's what they teach in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not supposed to say that. I went to 3 anonymous meetings. Actually, I went for 3 months.
I bet the one too.
But that's step 4 in this anonymous meeting, is that you have to do a deep self-moral inventory of yourself, of all the people that you've hurt or the things that have hurt you, and start to begin to work through that, and you start to dive into that root and fix that. Well, that's the process with God. And a lot of people don't want to do that because it's scary and it hurts, and we're all selfish, and we all can't be the problem, right? Oh, it's not me. I'm not the problem. They're the one with the bad attitude. But we don't like to take a look at something and go, I have to be the bigger and better person, and not run that into the ground and not do this. So I just want to clarify, we weren't picking on churches earlier. I'm not trying to beat that into the ground. It's just an example of how man can come in and interrupt something. You know, Johnny Cash said, you're so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. And we can't be there. We can't be that way. We have to constantly, now we don't all have to walk around on clouds. Bless you, my child. You know, that's not real. That's not a real expectation. I might flip you off and cuss you out at a red light. God's working on that. He's working on that side of me.
Well, I got a temper, dude. I went to McDonald's. They got my order wrong twice, and then I drank my Coke when I got back in the car, and it tasted like ass. So I'm like, I'll just throw the whole...
Have you seen the new Coca-Cola flavors? They're trying to do these weird flavors, and so it'll be like, the flavor's called like angelic or something. I think there might be an ass.
So I hope this is not an ass-flavored Coke.
It was awful, man.
So you talk about going to McDonald's. So this is something that... This is it. Jeremy Braswell, you walk into you're on a road trip, right? You guys just got back from the beach, right? Mm-hmm. So you're on a road trip, it's late at night, you go into a truck stop. What are you coming out with?
Oh, for sure. Dr. Pepper, bacon cheddar fries, and probably a whatchamacallit.
Boom! Very
And
specific.
probably not a Coke ass.
Not an ass.
Not an ass Coke.
Now I might if they come out with it in the zero, like if it's Coke ass zero.
What are y'all coming out with?
Zero ass. That's my everyday, dude. Oh my God, it's so funny. Fisher, he's 9 years old, and he was changing clothes the other day. I told Hayden, I looked at him, I said, he's 9 years old. How does he already have old man ass? How is that even a thing? You know what I mean? To be that young. Monster, water, and some form of dried beef product. Jerky with cheese, something like that. That's what I'm coming out with. Faron, what are you coming out with?
I'm coming out with the biggest fountain drink they got. So if they got the 64 ounce, if they got the 250 ounce, if it'll fit in my cup holder somehow, but I want it to, but it's got to be like it's got to be a zero. It's either got to be Diet Mountain Dew or Coke Zero, right? Because that way I can eat whatever I want. Because the Diet Coke cancels it out. Yeah, and then probably going to be a Hershey bar.
Hershey bar.
Yeah, because
Old
sometimes
school.
I gotta just have the chocolate. I don't buy them at home. I don't have them at home.
Almonds?
Right.
But I'm gonna get one out. I'll do the almonds, but I usually want the king size just milk chocolate, right?
Heck
and
yeah.
so those are the standards. I might, depending on if I've eaten or not, might throw a bag of chips in there, but it'll be the weirdest. I'll look for some really weird, crazy flavor that I've never tried before, and I'll take a chance on it. Might be great, might be terrible. But I'm not afraid, if I haven't already eaten, I ain't afraid of gas station hot dogs.
Oh, I ate a gas station hot dog.
They
love
are
roller dogs.
the best.
Yeah. And the little torpedoes, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
So you brought up a point. It's my favorite movie scene almost of all time. And it's very subtle and it's so stupid. But it's in Dumb and Dumber when he comes out of the store and he goes, big gulps, huh? Well, see you later. And he's got that big ass cup. That's hands down one of my favorite
Oh,
ever.
man. I love it when it says, what's the soup du jour?
Yeah.
And she says, that's the soup of the day. And he says, I'll have that. I love it.
All right, Jeremy, you are, let's say, what was your favorite age as a kid? Elementary age.
Probably second grade. So how old is that? Miss Baker was my teacher. That was
That'd be
an
like
awesome
8.
time. That was
Okay.
He-Man.
So take a trip back there. What was your favorite toy? It's Christmas?
He-Man.
He-Man was it?
Absolutely, dude. Castle Grayskull. One of my parents, I would disclaim this. They had this wicker rattan thing in the bathroom that they would throw towels in. So, of course, I'm curious. My son doesn't have any of me. Like, I'm a prowler. I would search the house for things that shouldn't be there.
Dude, I cut the tape.
Oh, dude. Well, they didn't wrap, so I open up and I see, like, the Battle Cat and He-Man. So I know this Christmas is going to be a score, right? But I still believe in Santa Claus. Anyway, that Castle Grayskull, that early Christmas.
Oh,
Dude,
man.
I had-
Castle
was
Grayskull.
awesome.
I had the best He-Man toy in the world. It had, you remember the snap guns that had the little 6-ring deal in it? It was like a cat pop deal. That my He-Man had a backpack. You open the backpack, you put that in it, close it, and twist it, and pow! Every time it punched, it would pop one of those things in the back.
I never saw one.
Greatest He-Man toy ever growing up.
I'm jealous.
Well, I do have to say one thing with all this He-Man talk, and this is inappropriate. We'll edit it out, right?
Probably not.
Well, I just saw a meme like this week, and it said, "Never forget that He-Man had a friend named Fisto," and it was the guy who had the big giant purple fist standing next to him. So there's that.
Also, there was Sucker Man. Remember him?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was just a suction cup, dude.
Stick to the wall.
Wow.
Moss Man. Yeah.
Man at Arms had a good mustache, though. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember, Man at Arms was basically Magnum PI with a weird helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome.
So, Jeremy, what's your tombstone message or message to the masses? The one thing you're going to be back on here again, so this is not the end of it, but it's
we got so much stuff. We can talk about.
What do you want to throw out there? What's the Jeremy Braswell quote of the day?
So the hardest thing to get for me, oh goodness, I don't know, man. It'd probably be a word, and it's stupid and cliche. But I mean, the thing that was hard for me to get is like, so when I'm mean to my wife, it's because I feel like myself. I feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just love people.
Yeah. And there's nothing cliche about that.
No,
man.
absolutely not. That is not.
Be kind.
Be kind.
And love
This is my
people.
favorite shirt, and I've just about worn it out, and so I'm going to be hitting up Amazon again soon.
Well, sounds like we need a DtDS Be Kind shirt.
And I tell you what I
That's
need
what
to
it
work
sounds
on by saying that, dude. Yeah, I agree 100%. By saying that, like sometimes it's easier for me to be kind to everybody, and when I get home, like my insecurities and things, I tend to project sometimes probably more so on my family, which doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, why do we do that to the people that we care about, but we work so hard to be nice and make the right impression on the people that we don't
care
know
about. Yeah.
and will never see again?
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm not the only one that does that.
Hell no, dude. No, that was my greatest downfall in my relationship with Hayden in the 5 years that we've been together. That was it, because I would project my pain onto her,
and I know that I'm doing it when I do it.
Well, let me tell you guys this: my wife is the person that is the most important for me to be the most considerate of and kindest to. She does me that way.
Yeah,
and she is the one that I consciously work the hardest to treat with the most compassion and love and caring. Now, having said that, that is not in any way me trying to say I'm better than y'all.
Yes, it is.
Because
thanks, Faron.
No,
thanks,
because
Faron. Appreciate that.
No, here's why. Because she's my fifth wife.
So you had some practice.
Apparently, I didn't do that like I should with the others.
But it all worked out for you, didn't it?
That's great, dude.
And, I say that because, I know if I thought that it would embarrass her for me to say that, then I wouldn't have. She would laugh as well.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. Jeremy, thank you for being here.
Yes,
Faron, man. I was really
glad
nervous
you're
about
here.
this. This is great. This is great.
Remember to be real, be you, be salt. Swing over to the page, give us a like and a share. Leave us some feedback. You can email us at talkto@dothedamnshow.com if you'd like to get in here and talk about your experience and how God's worked in your life, or, how God didn't work in your life. We're open to that too. Love you guys. We're out.
Hey. When
You could sit in here and talk that.
I know, man. It's so good. God, that's good. That's as good as John Popper when he was still fat.